their lives had been. It had all been lost to them as soon as they'd had the bad luck to be discovered on their illicit trip into Torian lands. No one in Theos's squad spoke sufficient Alkati to interrogate the prisoners, so there was no point in further delay. His men loaded the Alkati down with whatever had seemed worth scavenging from their packs, and added a few of the heavier items from the Torian kits. Then they started off. They'd been on the last leg of their moon-long patrol as it was, so they didn't have to divert from their original course in order to head for home. Theos pushed a little harder than he might have without the prisoners, making sure they were sufficiently far away from the border to make rescue attempts unlikely, before giving the order to camp for the night. He also set out an extra sentry further back along their trail, to give advance warning if anyone was tracking them. They were in the mountains, with most of the land impassable, so there weren't many directions from which they could be attacked. Having done his job, he allowed himself to relax just a little. After another quick inspection, Theos loosened the hands of two of the prisoners, giving them freedom to prepare food for the other Alkati. And then, one of the prisoners still bound, a young man with barely enough beard to earn the name, stood and shuffled toward him. He held his own hands out, tugging on the ropes. Theos raised an eyebrow, and the Alkati pointed with his chin, gesturing toward two of his comrades who'd been injured in the battle. "You want to patch them up?" Theos assessed the boy, then shrugged and loosened the rope around his wrists. After all, the prisoners would be more valuable if they were in good health. The boy started working with what seemed like competence. He looked at Theos for permission a few more times, first to take a pot to the spring and fill it with water, then to burrow through one of the Alkati packs for a bag of healing salves. The Alkati were renowned as scholars and doctors, so the Sacrati who'd sorted through their gear had known these potions might have value, but they probably hadn't intended them to be used on the prisoners themselves. Still, Theos couldn't bring himself to object, not until the boy returned to Theos and pointed at his waist. You want my knife?" Theos shook his head. These Alkati were all brain and no heart. They had no understanding of what was important. "No." The boy held up his hands as if promising a truce, but Theos hadn't refused to lend his knife because he thought it would be used as a weapon. He would have been more likely to lend it if there was a chance it would shed blood, to allow his oath blade, the sacred steel of his initiation into the Sacrati Brotherhood, to be handed to the enemy for use in some menial task? Unthinkable. The question was a sign of the Alkati's ignorance. "Here," Andros said. He picked up one of the kitchen knives and held it out to the boy, handle first. "Will this do?" The boy frowned, made a gesture of sharpening, and waited until Andros found the whetstone and handed that over too. Then he nodded, just a quick jerk of his head that seemed merely an acknowledgement, not a thanks, and turned back to the other prisoners. "Demanding," Theos commented. Andros grinned. "I think he's pretty." Theos snorted. "I put Zeno on sentry duty for one night, and you're already prowling for company? I expect Zeno will think he's pretty too. We're always happy to share." "Not until we're back to town," Theos said, letting just a touch of his authority slip into his voice. "You know how strange the Elkati are about sex. They're good little prisoners now, and I want to keep it that way. You will not set off some holy rebellion because you have an itch." "I thought coming on patrol with you as a yachtis would be fun," Andros said with a sigh. He leaned back and watched the young prisoner sharpen the knife. "I thought, Theos is young and he likes adventure. I'll go with him." "You were assigned to come with me, and you were assigned because I asked for you, and I asked for you because you have good sense. Don't ruin that now." Andros sighed again in exaggerated disappointment. They sat together for a while, eating the dinner brought to them by the soldier on food duty, absent-mindedly observing the prisoners as darkness fell on the camp. "Which one are you?"